Greetings and welcome back, everyone, to Factorio, a beginner's guide thereof, where I am joined, as ever, by Shenryyr.
Hey, what's up? How's it going, Aavak?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. And
I'm sorry,
yourself?
not Aavak, Count Avacula.
Yes, I forgot I changed my name to that. I like my name on this.
So, what's the plan
Right.
today?
Well, the plan today, as you can see from the last episode, I've gone ahead and I cleared out a bit of space of the trees, and off camera, we've allowed some of our resources to build up a little bit and just generally moved coal around, so that we're not going to have to worry about that too much here, because we are going to be focusing on building steam engines and then moving on to an electric, well, economy, I say, probably more electric infrastructure for our base. So we're not relying on all of these coal chomping burner miners. Very inefficient, in my opinion.
Right. So there's a whole bunch of items in this game that run off electricity, and you don't start the game with the capability of doing electricity. You have to start with these burner drills, burner furnaces, all this kind of stuff that uses coal or wood or whatever as a fuel to produce an object or to get something done. In this case, we've done the burner phase, and we want to advance on to the electric phase. And everything you see on the screen can be replaced with an electric equivalent. The drills can be electric drills, the furnace can be electric furnace, everything can be electricity, and we're going to go there right now. So, how do we get started with electricity?
Right. Well, there's actually two ways of producing electricity. One is a much more mid to late game method, which is completely clean. But the one we're going to be using right from the beginning is steam power. Now, obviously, we've got some nice bodies of water nearby. The first thing we're going to need is an offshore pump. Now, an offshore pump, as the name implies, literally pumps the water from the shore. So you need two electronic circuits for that, a pipe and one gear wheel. And to mix things up from how I was doing it last time, I'll actually make each of these things specifically. So you can see where in the crafting menu we find this. So we go under intermediate products for the gear wheel, need one of these. You need one pipe. You'll find that under logistics. So you just smack that. One pipe needs one metal. And finally, we also want two electronic circuits. Now, the electronic circuits, there are a couple of different electronic circuits, and this is worth mentioning now. They all have different names, but ultimately, you will find both Shen and I will be referring things such as green circuits, red circuits, blue circuits. They are actually different, more advanced circuitry, but they are all electronic circuits, effectively. Now, this requires 3 copper cable. We will find copper cable under logistics. 1 copper plate gives you 2 copper cable. Not everything gives you 1 for the amount of resources. Some of them will actually produce things in a batch. So we're going to have 2 batches of this. So we're going to have 1 copper cable left over. And that's per electronics. So we're going to need 2. So actually, we're not going to have any left over. That's quite handy. There we go. So if we just click on that twice, get 2 electronic circuits, and then the offshore pump. There we are, dropped in the hotbar. Now, Shanti, you want to discuss how this all goes together?
Oh, goodness. I'm not sure if I don't know if I'm qualified for that. Where would you like me to put a pump down? I got a pump for you.
Right. Well, if you want to pop a pump, probably up here because it's nice and a straight shoreline there. Now, the pump doesn't need to be powered. You might think it would, but it doesn't, thankfully. But it does need somewhere for the water to go. So we're going to need to make a couple of pipes for this. And there's 2 different types of pipes. One is the regular pipe section, and this can do a couple of things. I'm actually going to go ahead and make 5 of these by right-clicking on it. And then I'm going to place these down just to demonstrate how they connect. You don't generally need to worry about orientation. They will reorientate themselves. In fact, you can't rotate them. I can't turn that to be going horizontally. They'll just work out that they need to be going horizontally based on what's around them, or if they need to be a corner section. So that's one thing to bear in mind. Now, I'm going to turn off the overlay here because it does kind of hide the pipe graphic a little bit too much. The second one is a ground to pipe or a pipe to ground. Now, you get 2 of these for 10 pipes and 5 iron plates. So you click on it once, and there we go. Now, these you do need to rotate, and that's why I wanted to cover the fact that you don't need to do it generally with pipes, but these are very specific. If I place one down there, you'll notice that when I move the pipe around, there's a little kind of dotted yellow line that's telling me that within this area, whilst there's a dotted yellow line, I can place the other pipe, and effectively the pipe's going underground that far. They're both connected. Anything going in one end is coming out the other. One tile further, that's not connected in any way. So you do have to make sure you put that down. Now, right now, you're not seeing the yellow line because I haven't rotated it. The moment I rotate it to the correct direction, the yellow line pops back up. So it's fairly straightforward, but it is something that's worth keeping in mind. Now, generally, you don't need to put it nearly that far away. A little bit closer is fine. The reason why I like to do that is because you can't walk through pipes.
Yeah.
Fairly obvious. It's worth having these little gaps in any pipe network so you can just move around your factory, because eventually it becomes quite sprawling and it can become a bit of a maze just trying to move around.
So as he was saying, you can't walk through pipes. You just can't.
Right.
So you need to build these pipe to ground, which is considered an underground segment of pipe. And it functions the same as any normal pipe. The only difference is you can walk through it, you can place buildings on top of it, and it's just a generally fantastic structure. The one downside is if you're not using it at full length is 10 tiles. If you're not using it at full length, you really are wasting resources.
Yes.
And
yes, absolutely.
In this case, it's 5 lengths. So we're using about half of the length that it could be, but we're still spending the full 10 pipe to build it.
Yeah. Right. Now, the next part of the steam engine chain is the boilers. Now, the boilers require these stone furnaces. Ooh, we're coming under attack. Never mind.
Already?
Down there. Now, if you hold down space, you will use whichever weapon you currently have selected. There, I use my pistol, and you'll see there's a little green bar at the bottom. Now, that's showing me how many rounds of ammunition are in the magazine that I just used. So I've used most of my first magazine. Now, this is actually kind of an aside, but you'll notice that all buildings have health, and this little biter, this alien, was doing damage to it, so it's gone down a little bit. We can repair that later on, but early on, you might not have the means to. Oh, it looks like Shen is doing that anyway. Thank you very much, Shen.
Now, if you want to build repair tools, it's under the production tab. Yeah, all it takes is electronics and iron gear wheels, which may sound kind of difficult, but no, electronics are pretty easy. Just a little copper, a little bit of iron, and iron gear wheels just take some iron. So the total production cost is only 1.5 copper plates, 3 iron plates, and they're very quick to make. They don't last that long, though. So if you're going to be repairing things, you're going to take a lot of them with you.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we are being attacked at this point. That does bring me on to one other thing I just wanted to cover, and one of the reasons why I want to move away from using all of these coal-burning structures is there's a thing called pollution. It's easier to see if you bring up the map. If I press Alt, you'll see this kind of little red overlay. That's the pollution that my buildings are producing. And that is what triggers alien attacks, is when pollution goes over their base, they attack. They actually consume the pollution. The more pollution you give them, the stronger they will become, and the more units they'll be able to spawn and send at you. Trees will block the pollution. You'll notice the pollution is stretching out a little bit more on the east than it is to the northwest, and that's because there's a lot of trees still there, and they're soaking that pollution up. But we'll go into the specifics of pollution a little bit later. Now, back to what we were doing with the boilers. It requires a stone furnace and some pipe. I'm going to have to go and grab some stone. Shen, do you want to discuss how the boilers work?
Sure. Boilers take fuel, just like a furnace or just like our mining drills here. Boilers take fuel and they heat up the liquid in the pipe. In this case, it's going to heat up the water. If you mouse over the pipe, it tells you right now the water here is temperature 15 degrees. And I believe this is Celsius degrees.
Yeah.
And then when you hook it up to a a steam engine to produce electricity, the engine will produce electricity based off of the temperature of the water. So the engine will run at max efficiency, produce the most electricity if you have it at temperature 100 water. So we need enough boilers to get the water up to 100 temperature for however many steam engines we're going to have.
That's right, yeah. Now, we're going to just build a small electricity setup here just to get things rolling. But later on, if you're not new to the game, if you're kind of planning for the future, you might want to leave a lot of room for a lot of boilers, because there's various ratios of how many boilers to how many engines. But we're not going to worry about that. As you can see, Shen has placed one down. I will place one as well. I usually go for 5, and I'll show you why in a few moments. But 5 boilers will run. 5 boilers will run a few steam engines. I think like 2 or 3 fairly well. They'll keep the temperature of the water up at 100 degrees over quite a few steam engines. Now, the engines themselves, they're actually quite expensive in terms of iron. 5 iron plates and 5 pipes and 5 iron gears. But we'll go ahead and I'll make 2 on me right now. I'm sure Shen is making a couple as well.
I'll make 5 of them. The total cost for each engine, if you want to see the total cost of anything, it's at the very bottom of the tooltip mouse over. So mouse over the steam engine, it says it takes 5.5 seconds to build one. That's because it has to build the intermediary parts first. And the total cost is only 20 plates. You don't need to have anything else on you, just 20 plates, and you have yourself a steam engine.
Yep. Now, the steam engine is a much larger structure. You can place it down there. And Shen, if you want to pop another one down as well. I'm just putting anything that I don't need immediately and I'm likely not going to build in my overall inventory. I don't need it on my hotbar by and large. Now, these by themselves, not doing anything yet. And that's because the boilers have no fuel in them. So we're going to set that up. I'm just going to go and grab some fuel from the burner drills down here.
And while he's doing that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the direction of flow. In this case, we have the pump pushing water, and you can see if you zoom in really close, scroll in with your scroll wheel, you can zoom in really close. You can see the water pushing from the pump into the pipe. You can't really see it in the underground, but that's fine. And then from the pipe, it's hitting a boiler. Where does it go from the boiler? It goes directly into the next boiler. The boilers act as a pass-through. Water comes in one side and it goes out the other side. So the water comes in from this pipe, through this boiler, through this boiler, through this boiler, through this boiler, through this boiler. And then by the time it leaves this boiler, it says temperature 25. Go ahead and keep filling it up with fuel and we'll mouse over the temperature here and see how it goes. Still 25. Okay, now it's at 79, 100. Perfect. So temperature at the final boiler is now 100. Each boiler is raising the temperature a little bit, and by the end it's at 100 degrees. And then the water flows from the last boiler into the steam engine. And the steam engine does not stop the water flow. The flow goes right through the steam engines. And this can allow you all sorts of different power arrangements for placing steam engines all over the place. For instance, we could put an underground pipe here at the end of the steam engine, make a little walk-through area, and then put down another steam engine. You don't have to do stuff like this, but the game allows this kind of design in case you want it.
Likewise, you can actually add more boilers, and you might want to do that at some point, perhaps just to top up the temperature if you've got a very long boiler chain. But right now, you'll notice that at the very end pipe, the temperatures in the boilers are rising slightly, and it's saying if you mouse over it, it's got the water temperature, how much water is there, performance, and available performance. The engine, because the temperature in the water here is 99, it can pretty much output almost its full amount of power, but it's not being requested, so it's not doing anything at all. And the little flashing icon on it is just showing that it's not connected to any electricity network. There are no power poles there, and that's the next part that we want to work on.
Okay, so power poles are in the logistics tab.
Mm-hmm.
They take a little bit of wood and a little bit of copper. They're very quick to make. You're going to be using them all over the place. So I'm going to right-click a couple times, and I'll make 15 of them for now. It's a good low estimate.
As you notice, as I said previously, the way that the crafting system works up is it's added to the back of the queue. So although I'm making all of the same thing here, the components, which are all being made out of something else, so the wooden planks are being made out of wood, the copper cable is being made out of copper plate, they're getting added to the back rather than just seeing 30 or however many at the beginning, or 35 in my case, or 40 rather. At the very beginning, it was 5, and then the components for the next 5, and then the components for the next 5, and so on.
Okay. So in this case, we have 5 boilers hooked up to 4 steam engines. We're not going to get the best output from here. The first 2 steam engines, if you mouse over it, the information on the right says temperature 99. That's ideal. The next one says temperature 96. That's probably fine. But the third one says temperature 53. That means available performance, the little green bar there, is very low. The steam engine is going to be using fuel to produce energy, but it's only going to get about, 40%, it looks like, according to that bar, of the electricity that it could be producing. And the last one is even worse. So why don't we remove these?
Pulling these back.
Yeah.
It's based on how far the water is traveling through the pipe network without being topped up with heat again, which is why I mentioned that you can kind of put inline boilers just to top that heat up if you want to. I know a lot of people, though, think that it's best to just have a lot of boilers at the beginning and then a long line of engines at the back. I actually think it looks better to have the boilers in the middle of them, but I very much operate by the rule of cool rather than the rule of efficiency.
Well, yeah, aesthetics is everything. A lot of people will play this game and they'll see it as almost a city building game. They want it to look
Yeah.
appealing because you can put down flooring, you can put down walls, you can put down, decorative anything you'd like.
Indeed. And right now, I'm going to put down the first of the power poles. Now, you'll notice there's a little outline around the foot of the power pole, and that's how far out it can attach something to the power network it's providing. So in this case, you need at least one tile, and it only needs to be one tile over a building. And the building will generally highlight to show that it's hooked up. So in this case, because there's one tiny corner of this power pole over the first one, it's showing that it's going to be connected. But for the sake of aesthetics, we'll put them close together. You can have them about 2 tiles apart, and you'll notice the power line is connecting across them. And I actually think that looks quite nice, but we'll pop those there. Now, I am wasting, again, efficiency by doing it like this, but I think it looks better. Now, this is the reason why I had 5 of these, is because the radius, or rather the diameter of the power network area from a basic small electric pole is 5 tiles. So I'm going to be able to power 5 things on the other sides of these boilers. And those things that I want to power are electric inserters. Now, there's 2 types at the beginning. There are more later on. There's the burner inserters, which require coal. They require fuel to work. And then the electric inserters, which draw on the network's power. I'm going to go ahead and make 5 of those. They require a gear, an electric circuit, and 1 iron plate.
Okay, now one thing we haven't discussed yet is moving things from one place to the next. So
Yes.
far, we've been doing that by hand, which is fine. At the beginning of the game, you're going to be doing a lot of things by hand. You're going to be building things in your pocket. You're going to be, fueling these things by clicking on them and putting coal into there. You're going to be picking up the stone by hand. You're going to be doing all this stuff by hand at the beginning of the game. Later on, once you have electricity like we're building now, you're going to be able to move things long distances with what are called belts, transport belts. Later on, there's even trains. There's a lot of things that make the game cars, correct?
Robots.
Robots, yeah. But in this case, we're going to be using the transport belts, which are easy to build. They only take 1 second to build a segment of transport, to build 2 segments of transport belt, actually, and they're very cheap, 3 iron each. And then after we've used the belts, we're going to be using, like Aavak mentioned, inserters to put items from the belt either into something or to remove them from something.
That's right, yeah. Now, on my screen, I just held down Shift and left-clicked on the transport belt because we're going to need an awful lot of these. So I've just said, use all of my available resources to make as many transport belts as possible. So I'm now making 38 batches of 2. So in total, I'll end up with 74.
And while you're doing that, I'm making some more inserters because I know we're going to need a lot of them.
Yes. Right, there we go. I've just topped up a little tiny bit of extra iron. Now, the way the inserters work is on the inserter, you'll see that it's got a little arrow showing its output side, and it's also got a little, like a yellow bar. Now, the bar shows where it's going to take something from. In this case, this particular type of inserter, and there are lots of different types that we'll get to in a later episode when we cover research. It will take something from behind it and it'll put it into something in front of it. Now, that something could be anything within inventory. It could even be just a tile. It would literally just drop it on the tile. But again, remember that when you're dealing with just the world just on the floor, there's a limit of only one object, not one stack, one object. So even though coal can stack to 50 in an inventory on the floor, it'll just be one solitary, sad little lump of coal.
Okay, so we're going to put in all these inserters here. And you can see the arm is positioned to grab something from the left and move it to the right. But if you click on R, if you press R on your keyboard while you mouse over an object, you can rotate it, and this will instead grab an object from somewhere else and move it the different direction. Now, in this case, it's picking up coal and moving it onto the ground. Now, if you want to pick up stuff from the ground, you hold down the letter F on your keyboard, and it will pick up anything that you walk over. So I'm just going to pick up that coal there. And what are we going to use for these arms, these inserter arms, to grab to put into the burners? What do we have in the burners now? Coal.
Oh.
So why don't we put some coal there? Do you have your belt ready to go?
Yes, I do. So we'll run the belt down. Now the belt, as you can hear, it's moving. And one other thing I wanted to touch on is the moment I put down the inserters, the steam engine started working because the inserters draw power. They have a small energy drain. And as a result, because now there's power demanded, the engine started to ramp up and they're now producing power. They're nowhere near the maximum amount of performance. So they're working very slowly, but that will actually, the engines will speed up the harder that they're working. The furnaces will also, for a brief moment, you possibly saw it light up a little bit, and that's because once the engines started using the steam, the boiling water inside them, it was burning it off. So fresh water was being pumped in. And that water was cold because it just came from the lake. So the boiler was just warming that up.
Okay, so in this case, we have a belt, and you can see the direction of the belt, and it's very obvious the direction it's moving. When you're placing belts down, again, R is your fancy tool to organize your belt system. You can put down belts in any direction that you would like, and you can have angles as sharp as this. And yes, this does work. This is a functional belt that feeds itself for whatever reason. And again, if you want to change the direction, just press R again while you mouse over it to change the direction of the belt. And you can pick up stuff by right-clicking on it. So I'm going to remove that stuff because I don't need that belt right there. And I believe Aavak is going to belt up from the coal. Actually, why don't you run the belt down from the system, and I'll put the belt here by the coal.
Sure, that would be fine.
Okay, so down by the coal, we're going to go up, and then I need to... Oh, we're off by 2 tiles. All right, we'll do a little corner here. Bingo. Excellent. And then we need inserters down here as well.
I will run the power down from the network.
Okay, sounds good. And once you get the hang of this, just putting down power lines, putting down your inserters, putting down your belts, it's, pretty easy peasy. It's just repetition at that point. You learn quick in this game.
And there you go. So the burner drills are still facing each other. They're feeding the coal to each other, keeping them working. And then the inserters are picking it up and then moving it down the belt. Eventually, when it gets to the end of the belt, it'll start backing up. Now, it's worth noting at this point that a belt has 2 sides. As you can see, all the coal is very clearly on the right side of the belt. They can also have things on the left side. And it doesn't need to be the same thing. You can have any number of things on a belt. It'll literally show you what's on there.
Well, but now hold on there, Aavak. Yeah. Look. This is clearly an American belt because they're on the right side. Okay, they're all on the right side.
Okay,
it's the correct side. This is
not
correct
driving
belt.
On the left, right?
There are incorrect ways to do belts, and sometimes you'll see items on the left side of a belt. Don't do that. No, I'm just joking. Okay, so like he says, it just piles up here at the end, and that's because we're not using it very quickly. It does not take much electricity to run our network, and this is a very important thing that Aavak touched on, and that is that your engines will only run as fast as they need to produce enough electricity that you're using in your entire factory. If you're not using it all, then your engines won't run as hard and you won't use as much fuel.
Yeah. Now, as this is building up, the reason why I mentioned the left and the right side of the belt is simply that right now we're only using half of the carrying capacity of these belts, and later on you might want to try and engineer your belt system to make sure things are being put on the other side. Inserters will always take from any tile on in front of them, and they will always put onto the furthest side of the belt away from them. So in this case, these inserters will always put onto the right side of the belt. Even if that's full, they'll just wait until there's room. They won't start putting things on the left side of the belt no matter what.
Okay, and as you notice, we have these burner mining drills with their output pointed at each other, and previously they were able to feed each other fuel endlessly and just constantly drill. But now that we have inserters have a higher priority as far as pulling things out of an object. So instead of using each burner drill's output into each other, it was putting the output into the inserter first. The inserter has a higher priority. So it got the object first, which means they stopped feeding coal to each other, so they shut down. But you know what? I don't think I want to keep using burner inserters, Aavak. We need to advance from this. This is, I don't know. This is like caveman. We got to move on.
Uncivilized.
Yes.
Uncivilized. It's not progressive.
So again, he's right-clicking to pick everything up, and it does take a couple seconds to pick it up. So don't be surprised if it just sits there for a bit.
Also, if you pick up something with an inventory that has something in it, in this case, the burner inserters had coal in them, you pick up the coal as well. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to worry about that. You don't need to empty a crate before you pick the crate up. You can just try to pick up the crate as long as you've got room in your inventory. If you don't, bad things can happen. Things will spill on the floor, and it'll take ages to pick them up.
Yes, now, that's a good point. If you don't have room in your inventory and you're trying to pick up a box and the box is full of stuff, it will explode all over the floor. Just everywhere. It's very pretty, but it's messy. It's messy.
Especially if it's in the middle of your factory and some of the space that it explodes onto are your transport belts. And all of a sudden you've got random bits of coal ending up in the wrong place.
Oh no.
It's not good. Now, what we're going to advance to, and the last thing we're going to do in this episode, is we're going to move to electric mining drills. They require 3 electric circuits, 5 iron gears, 10 iron plates, in total 23 iron and 4.5 copper plates. But as the name suggests, these run entirely off electricity. They're also significantly better than the burner drill in terms of how much they can mine and how fast they do it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice that much like the power poles, they have like an overlay footprint to show where they can draw from, whereas the burner drills literally could only mine the tiles directly underneath them. The electric miners, not only are they larger, so they've got more tiles underneath them, but they can also mine from one tile in every direction. So we'll just pop one here, directly outputting to the left side of the belt. So now we're going to be filling up both sides for now. The right side is no longer going to be getting anything. We can fix that, though, and I think I will quickly do that just as the last part of the episode here. If we put that one there, just to make sure it's still getting power, remove this one.
Oh, we're getting super advanced here. Let me remove this belt.
I know. We're caring about efficiency now, a little bit. There we go. So now these 2 drills will make sure that there's coal on either side of the belt, and generally we're just going to have much more coal in the network. So that more or less sums up how to get an initial kind of foot in the door of the electrical sort of economy or industry going. Off camera, we're going to go ahead and upgrade all of our other miners to electric miners. We're going to be doing exactly what we've just done here. So when you return, we will have everything running on electricity, and then we'll look for the next stage in the Factorio process, which I think will probably be research.
I believe so. I believe next episode will be setting up a smelting line and setting up your first research. That will be that'll be fun. But yeah, just before we head out, I want to touch on one last thing. You mentioned that the mining drills are larger. Electric miners are larger than the burner drills, and they're 4 times as large. Instead of covering 4 tiles, they cover 16 tiles of area, which means you can leave them there longer because they cover far more resources. 6.5 thousand resources of coal on this one particular drill. Also, you mentioned that they're more efficient, and they certainly are. If you mouse over the burner drill, it mentions they have a mining power of 2.5 and a mining speed of 0.35, whereas the electric has a mining power of 3 and a mining speed of 0.5. That tells you how fast they will pull resources and put them onto the belt. So these will actually put more resources on the belt more quickly than the burner drills.
That's right. Right. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this episode and it was informative as well. If there are any particular questions that you have, do let us know in the comments below. But until next time, do take care.
Have a good day.